Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life.
Namaste. So today for our podcast, we're going to talk about Ayurveda for long COVID. So let's start thinking, what do we really mean by long COVID? And there's two different things. There are the long-term effects of COVID, and there's an actual illness that certain people unfortunately experience every single day, which goes by the name long COVID. So in 2020, beginning of 2020, a new thing came into our lives. It changed our society, changed our way of life. It has permanently changed my Ayurveda practice as I have had to learn to deal with something entirely new. One thing I've noticed is that everyone who's had COVID, and that's most of my patients, everyone has long-term effects from COVID, whether they know it or not. This can be seen in the pulse reading. So once I'm reading the pulse, I'll say, yes, have you had COVID? How many times? When? And here's what's getting affected. Commonly, the sinuses, because of COVID's effect on the microbiome, can affect the sinuses, the lungs, the heart. These are the things that I do typically notice. Some patients, more of a long-term effect on the lungs. Some patients, more of a long-term effect on the heart. Some patients, both. Another thing that's unfortunately become all too obvious to me of late is that COVID can affect the kidneys. It can reduce the glomerular filtration rate. In other words, it can affect the basic kidney function. And for my patients that were already suffering from kidney failure, getting a sickness followed by a sudden reduction in their glomerular filtration can be pretty drastic. So that's another thing I've become aware of. Another thing I've seen tracking all of my patients since COVID came to dwell among us is the onset or the exacerbation of very serious chronic conditions. We're talking about diabetes, we're talking about Parkinson's, we're talking about multiple sclerosis and other serious chronic conditions. Maybe you already had that condition, but then you got COVID and it made it worse. Maybe you already had the tendency to get that condition, but then you got COVID and it pushed you over the edge. I've had a patient who was doing pretty fine, had been pursuing with Ayurveda for years, got COVID, suddenly got like such severe diabetes, so severe. So this has been another very worrying thing. Also cognitive and neurological changes. So if you've had COVID once, twice, thrice, etc., do come into clinic, get seen, Let's examine your pulse, see what it tells us about the lurking dangers for you from COVID. Let's get some prevention underway. Let's get some nasceas. Let's get some teas. Let's get some herbs specifically tailored to the way in which we see that COVID has affected your body. So that's the first step. The long-term effects from COVID. You may think you had COVID. You may think you had a light case. You may think you got away with it. You may think it's just a cold. But my friends, a cold does not cause diabetes. A cold does not cause MS. A cold does not exacerbate Parkinson's. A cold does not cause heart disease. So please come in. Let us feel your pulses. Let's get some nose drops, some herbs, some teas going to protect you from the long-term effects. Then let's think about the people who are experiencing long COVID now, unfortunately, as a disease in its own right. Those of us that are sick every day, and it ranges from my friend Celine. She's a friend I've met on Twitter, back when it was Twitter, who cannot brush her own teeth. And she was an athlete and a college student and a vibrant, bubbly person before COVID, before one time of having COVID. Now can't even brush her own teeth. If they have to plan bathing for her, it's the most exhausting thing she can do for a couple of days, all the way to those of you that just have felt a bit fatigued and haven't felt right and haven't felt quite yourself ever since you had COVID. Some of the things that our long COVID people are experiencing include dysautonomia, your vagus nerve, your autonomic system not functioning right. That can cause POTS, paroxysmal orthostatic tachycardia, where your heart starts racing when you get up, stand up. That can, or all kinds of bowel problems that can be caused by dysautonomia, all the functions of the vagus nerve going wrong, fatigue. Fatigue is just such a horrible thing to have, especially if you were previously a healthy and vibrant person. You had a job, you had your studies, you had so many responsibilities. Now it's hard to accomplish what you need to accomplish. It's hard to make it through the day. And to me, the definition of fatigue is a kind of deep tiredness that doesn't go away when you rest. You can get up in the morning and feel fatigue. Then there's something that's known as exercise intolerance. And it's much more serious than we realized, because now they've done more studies. We're starting to learn more about long COVID. What seems to be exercise intolerance is not just a matter of getting too tired. When you exercise, it's not just about getting tired. Your muscles, your muscle fibers are actually getting damaged. You're actually getting muscle inflammation when you exercise. It's something very real. It's not just a feeling. Don't let anyone tell you that you just got deconditioned. You would never have gotten deconditioned if you weren't suffering from very real fatigue and very real exercise intolerance, meaning that a virus has affected your muscles such that They become painful and inflamed when you exercise. Don't let people brush your concerns aside. Doctors need to listen to you. Family needs to listen to you. Of course, many people since getting COVID have noticed cognitive issues, which are often termed as brain fog. Again, that's a bit of a minimizing term. A fog is something that lifts as the sun comes up. The cognitive issues, the brain changes with COVID can be seen as actual physical changes in the actual brain, of course, especially in the area of the brain where the olfactory function is occurring. But very important, very significant cognitive issues. So you may have been as sharp as a tack, and now you're not. You may have had an absolutely brilliant memory, and now you're forgetful. You may be earning your living as an Uber driver. I actually literally, in the first or second year of the pandemic, and it was probably the first year of the pandemic, I had to go for physical therapy for my scoliosis. And the Uber driver had to take me out there because it's too far away to walk to this special physical therapy for the Schroth method for scoliosis, which incidentally is super helpful. You should try it if you have scoliosis. It was been a life changer, absolutely amazing. So the Uber driver told me about having long COVID and how it had affected his brain, and then proceeded to drop me off at the wrong place. Like insisted on dropping me off where that physical therapy business used to be, not where it is. Left me dropped off at a building site. And I had to sort of like struggle out of the building site and find my way to the actual building. Very nice person, but definitely not able to function in the same way due to long COVID, because if you're an Uber driver, in fact, you ought to be able to drop the person off at the correct location and even understand them if they say that's not the location we're going to. It is actually a building site, not a physical therapy office. So very, very real cognitive issues that could be affecting you in all areas of your life. And along with those cognitive issues, there can be new onset of mental illness. You were perfectly fine, perfectly balanced before. Suddenly you have depression. Suddenly you have anxiety. Suddenly you have a mood disorder that you never had before. Or if you had a tendency to that before, suddenly it's way worse. And again, it's due to actual, physical, very real changes in your brain. It is not just due to, oh, you're kind of a wreck since COVID, blah, blah. You need to be listened to, and this needs to be taken care of. We should also mention when we speak of quote unquote brain fog, remember that's a minimizing term, but it's the term that people are using when we speak of mental and emotional changes that are quite unwelcome. Let's think about the interaction between perimenopause and long COVID, because perimenopause presents its own challenges with brain fog, with memory, with dysautonomia, with thermoregulation, with mood regulation. And if you're going through perimenopause and long COVID, that is a lot. So make sure you come into clinic, and also remember that we do have a self-paced menopause course, and you can get a discount on that course and learn more about your own menopause process through that course, Ayurveda for Menopause, and try to get some help and some greater knowledge and understanding in how to navigate that. So, what are some of the things we have to think about in order to help a person with long COVID? I think you get by now the first thing is believing. The long COVID people of today are just like the ME CFIDS people of the 90s. People that are being kind of looked down on and kind of told it's in your head. The first important thing is that we need to believe you. We need to appreciate that your symptoms are real and they're not caused by fear or anxiety, or it's not all in your head, and they're not caused by getting deconditioned, because you wouldn't have gotten deconditioned in the first place were it not for the long COVID. So one of the things that's really important with long COVID is viral persistence. That virus has wormed its way into your body and is here to stay, just as we have seen with HIV, with Epstein-Barr virus, with the virus that causes shingles. The virus has wormed its way into your body and is here to stay and is causing you continuing problems because it is continuing to do its viral thing in all of the tissues of your body that have ACE2 receptors, which is an awful lot of the tissues and organs of your body. Most of the ones we've talked about: heart, lungs, sinuses, kidneys, liver, and so on, the ACE2 receptors. So that's a very important thing, is that when we are working to help someone with long COVID, we're going to want to help you deal with viral persistence. This is something I learned starting in the 90s when I found out that my ME CFIDS patients really, truly were suffering from Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegalovirus viral persistence. And that once we started to tackle the virus, finally we could see a result in terms of regaining health. And now that I've brought up Epstein-Barr virus, that's another massive problem with long COVID, how long COVID triggers and reawakens other persistent viruses. So this is how long COVID can push you into or push you back into ME/CFIDS, chronic fatigue, immune dysfunction, MS, which is in large part caused by the Epstein-Barr virus, and so on. So the viral persistence and then the reawakening of other persistent viruses. And you've got a lot of hostile forces living within you, undermining your health and your daily life, stopping you doing the things that you really want to do. And so we need to tackle that in order to get you back to living the life you love, because that's what it's all about. Another thing that we've seen is that the SARS-CoV-2 virus can have a very bad effect on your microbiome, and this is how it can be causing a lot of digestive problems like diarrhea, constipation, gas, bloating, all kinds of digestive disturbances. So we're going to need to look at how your microbiome is being affected and deal with that with diet, herbs, and lifestyle changes. Then we're going to need to look at underlying causes because not everyone that gets COVID gets long COVID, and not everyone that gets long COVID gets all the same symptoms. What's going on in your body in terms of doshas that provided a fertile ground for that seed of disease to sprout? Balancing the underlying causes through working with the doshas is important. Then we have the idea of ama or toxins. How are we going to clear the ama? How are we going to clear the toxins that are making you feel tired, heavy, listless, just generally miserable? So we use some herbs, some teas, some chutneys, some spices, some different methods to actually clear those toxins out of your body. And then we work on kindling your digestive fire and supporting your digestive process because, of course, digestion is at the root of health. So, because of the effect that SARS-CoV-2 might have had on your microbiome, you may have developed new food intolerances. And the one thing I would say here is a new food intolerance therefore means one, if it came, it can go away. Whereas if you're celiac, were celiac, you are celiac, you will be celiac, and the only treatment for celiac is to be completely gluten-free. And whereas if you're lactose intolerant, you are lactose intolerant and you can't have lactose or it'll make you sick. And that's about you and not about transitory changes. There may be many other food intolerances that you've developed as a result of how COVID's affected your microbiome, how it's cemented itself into biofilm. And as we work on clearing the toxins, kindling the digestive fire, and improving the digestion, over the due course of time, you may be able to reclaim some foods that you seem to have temporarily lost the ability to eat. What about the exercise intolerance? We've talked about this is something very real and very dangerous, but we still have to work on it with those slow and steady changes. So you're not going to get over the exercise intolerance without all the things we just mentioned, without dealing with the viral persistence, without dealing with the microbiome, without balancing the underlying causes, without clearing the ama and getting the digestive fire, the Agni working properly, and sorting out your diet so it's right for this time in your life. But as long as we are doing all of those things and we are believing you and listening to you and working with very real, very physical things that are happening for you, then indeed we do have to create a program for your exercise intolerance. And it starts in Ayurveda with the principle of half capacity. What is an amount of exercise that is going to make you feel terrible? There's more than the maximum you can do. Hopefully, it's not like silly and it's not like brushing your teeth. For some people, it's walking across their room. Oh my dear. For some people, it's getting into their wheelchair. That's how bad their exercise intolerance is. But whatever it is, We want to see what that maximum amount is, and then we want to take half of that. And we want to start doing half of that amount of exertion. And then we want to start slowly, slowly, slowly increasing that half. I had my one patient, this was before COVID, she wasn't a long COVID patient. She was a patient of heart disease and emphysema, and the cardiologist had told her to go on her stationary bike for, I don't remember if it was 8 or 10 or even 20 minutes a day. And she totally couldn't. And I said, okay, let's start with 4 minutes. And the cardiologist laughed at me, but you know what? I was right. Because she started with 4 minutes, and then she went to 4.5 minutes, and then she went to 5 minutes, and then she went to 5.5 minutes, and then she went to 6 minutes, and so on. You see where we're going. We get to where we want to go, but we have to build that capacity slowly, and remembering it's not about deconditioning, it's about viral persistence, microbiome, toxins, digestive fire. So we have to be working on all of that while at the same time, slowly, slowly, gently, gently, gradually, gradually building your exercise tolerance. For some people, it's just lifestyle exercise. Like, can you fold a half basket of laundry? Can you do 3 dishes? These are all forms of exertion, and spacing those throughout the day and doing just how much you can do and then adding little more, little more, little more. Eventually you will build up your capacity as long as we're working on the basic issues. As far as your brain fog and your nervous system goes, we're going to need to work with nervine herbs, nervine teas, and the good news is we have created a special Nasya. Yes, we have created special nose drops for long COVID and for people who have had COVID. So if you already have the cognitive issues, those nose drops will help. And if you have had COVID and you haven't developed those issues, we're going to give you the nose drops anyway because we don't want you to get the cognitive issues. So that's why we're going to use it. Well, here we are in the early spring, and we should think about the fact that quite likely the very best key to the chance of regaining your health could be doing panchakarma. This is what worked for my people with CFIDs in the 90s, back when no one with CFIDs was believed, back when people with CFIDs were sick and broke because they were sick and they couldn't work. And we did panchakarma, the Ayurvedic cleansing system, even a home panchakarma that they did for themselves. And they got their energy back. And it was like a miracle. So here's hoping that this will also be the case for our long COVID people once you get to where you're well enough to embark on a panchakarma process. It is February now, so it's time to start thinking about doing your panchakarma. It's time to get in, be seen in clinic, get your blood cleansing formula, and get your program planned out for panchakarma and start getting ready to do it if you're up for that. Your practitioner will decide if it's a good idea yet. And then, of course, comes rasayana, rejuvenation. Once we've got on top of viral persistence, reactivated viruses, microbiome, toxins, digestive fire, cleansing, we get to the point where we can start to rebuild you with carefully selected herbs to rebuild your body systems and help you get your strength back. So the basic summary, if you've had COVID at all, you have long-term effects. I have read enough pulses in the last 5 years. I can tell you this for a fact. Once we see you in clinic, once we feel your pulses, we'll know to target more precisely. For you, has it been the lungs? Has it been the heart? Both? Has it been the sinuses, the kidneys, the liver? Where are we getting the signals that we need to work on those long-term effects? Has it been your mind, your brain, your memory, your balance, your emotional balance? Everyone needs to be helped after having COVID because this is a virus that changes our bodies and has long-term effects. But then if you are a person suffering with long COVID, with symptoms like dysautonomia, fatigue, exercise intolerance, cognitive issues, and so on, then we are going to need to go through all the steps of treating you and helping you to get your health back and get back to where you need to be so you can do the things, not only the things you have to do to get by, but so that you can do the things you love, so you can get back to living the life you love and living in joy, because Ayurveda is all about living in joy. Prasanat milyanischa swastireva abidyate. When the self or the soul is at peace within the mind and senses, that is health. We want to have that peace, that happiness, that joy, and by working together to help you regain your health, that's what we want you to experience, your joy. Namaste.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardanam urvarukamiva